All right, also final exam review. So number one wanted us to graph f of x equals absolute value. Oh, let me pull my camera where we can see better. Guess it got knocked back. All right, so we're going to find the absolute value of -6 minus x and graph that. All right, so I'm going to go to the calculator and go to my y equals and clear this out. So the first thing you want to do is get the absolute value. So to get the absolute value, there's two ways you can do that. First way, I can hit second and a 0. So second, 0 will bring up a catalog, and you can hit enter right there and get your absolute value. Now the second way you can do that, you can use the math button, and if you arrow over to number, absolute value is the first thing you see, and you can hit enter on that. So either way to get the absolute value. So math, and then go over to the number column. All right, so you got to use the -6 and then minus the x. So biggest mistake is people use the negative button for both of those, and it multiplies instead of subtracting. All right, older calculators, um, when you do the absolute value, it's going to give you like parentheses. It'll say ABS with parentheses. You'll put the -6 minus 6 and then shut your parentheses on the older ones. All right, so I'm going to show y'all how to set a window. So here's the answers they give me. And notice these x's go from -18 to 18, and the y values go from -18 to 18. So I'm going to show you how to hit the window button right here. And we're going to set our range to match theirs and our domain to match theirs. So the domain was -18, arrow down, +18. So that'd be your x min and x max. And then go to y min, put -18, and arrow down to y max, put +18. So now our graph, when we hit graph, will look exactly like one of those pictures. So on that, and I would go with my C and be done with that, okay? So y'all, the trick is just using the absolute value on that. All right, number two wanted me to find f of 0. And my f of x is going to equal x squared minus 2x minus 4. All right, so f of 0 wants me to put a 0 in for the x's and solve it. So f of 0 will equal 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 4. All right, order of operations, exponent first, I get a 0. Minus 2 times 0 is 0. And then minus my 4 for a final answer of -4. All right, y'all, let's see number 3. I'm going to bring the picture over. They want to know if this is a function or not. So we've been playing with these parabolas all year, so I'm pretty sure they're going to be a function. But what you could do officially is get a straight edge and run it along your graph left to right. And if you notice, there's no places where I intersect this more than once. So since it does not intersect a vertical line more than once, it is definitely a function. All right, number 4, I'm going to do it by hand, and then I'll use the matrix on the calculator to solve it. All right, so 3 we said was definitely a function. So 4 wants
So
us,
number 3, as long as it's moving from left to right, it's considered a function, right?
right. Now,
Okay.
when we did the horizontal lines on them, was when we was looking to see if they were 1-to-1. And that was when we was finding the inverses. So no, we're going to
Okay.
run this one left to right, like you said, and it's either going to hit once or more, okay? All right, y'all, here's a good one. We're going to solve 3x plus 2y plus a z equals -9. 5x minus 2y minus a z equals -31. And then 3x plus a y plus 3z is going to equal a -22. All right, I'm trying to see about how far I can get down on that. Okay, so right in here, I'm going to, okay, so I'm going to call this my equation 1, my equation 2, and my equation 3. So I need to pick a variable that I can get rid of on this. And y'all, I'll tell you the truth, you could go with either the y's or the z's and get rid of either one of those. Those would both be fairly easy. So I think what I'll do, I'm going to concentrate on getting rid of the z's first. So what I want to do first is add row 1 and add row 2 to that. So I'm going to add row 1 and 2 together. All right, so row 1 was 3x plus 2y plus z equals -9. Row 2 is 5x minus 2y minus a z equals -31. So what's nice about this, 3 plus 5 give me 8 x's. The y's cancel. The z's cancel. And on this side, -9 and -31 is what, a -40. All right, so that's pretty cool because I got a single variable, which now if I divide by 8 on both sides, I know for sure that x is -5. All righty, so now I'm going to use these two rows and get rid of the z. But notice this is a positive 3z, that's a -1z. So I'm going to multiply row 2 by 3 so I can make that a -3z. And when I add them, they'll cancel. So I'm going to add row 2 and row 3. But first we're going to multiply row 2 by a +3 to change that number, okay? So 3 times 5 will give me 15x. 3 times -2 gives me a -6y. 3 times -1z gives me a -3z. And then 3 times -31 gives me a -93. Now let's bring row 3. I don't have to change it. So I got 3x plus 1y plus 3z equals -22. So y'all adding those, I get 18 x's. -6y and 1y give me -5y. The z's cancel. And then let's see, let me add that together. So clear that. I got -93 plus -22. That's going to give me a -115. All right, what's nice is what happened on these equations. Since I now know that the x is -5, I'm going to plug that -5 in for the x and solve it for that y. Because then, after I do that, I'll know what the y equals, and then I can take the x and the y and plug it back into one of these equations and get that z. So I'm going to move this paper over. My two equations that I got were x equal to -5, 18x minus 5y equal to -115. All right, so let's plug that -5 into that x. So we get 18 times -5 minus 5y equals -115. So 18 times -5 is a -90 minus the 5y equal to -115. All right, y'all, let's add 90 to both sides. So now my numbers will start shrinking. So -5y. So -115 plus 90 is a -25. And then finally, divide both sides by that -5. And we'll have y equals a +5. So now I know x is a -5, y is a +5. I'm going to go back and pick one of these three equations and plug in the x and the y and get the z. So I'm going to use my first equation I had. I had a 3x plus 2y plus a z equals -9. All right, so let's put in the -5 for the x. So that'll be 3 times that -5 plus 2 times the y, which is 5, plus z equals -9. All right, y'all, so I'm going to multiply, get a -15 here, plus 2 times 5 is 10, plus my z equals -9. All right, next I'll probably add those like terms. So -15 and 10 give me a -5 plus z equals -9. And y'all, the last move on this equation is to add 5 to both sides. And I get z equals -9 and 5 is what? A -4. So my answer would be -5 for the x, 5 for the y, -4 for the z. So remember, put them in your alphabetical order when you're putting them in there, okay? All right, so let me show you all that one on the calculator. So to get to the matrices is where we're going to go. To get to the matrix, you hit second and then that little x to the -1 button. It's right under the math button. So I'm going to hit second, x -1, bring up the matrix. We want to arrow over and edit and hit enter. So now, let me bring this problem back. It needs to know how many rows times columns we're going to put into it. So I got 3 rows and I got 4 columns. So that would be a 3, which mine should be set on, enter, 4. So you put the 3 enter, 4 enter. That way it'll know to put the numbers in the same order we're going to put them on our paper, okay? Now, all we do is punch the numbers, no letters. So I would do 3 enter, 2 enter, 1 enter, -9 enter. Then it goes down to the next row. I got a 5 enter, -2 enter, -1 enter, -31 enter. Then my last row would be a 3 enter, 1 enter, 3 enter, and then -22 enter. So enter all your numbers. And then I'm just going to quit the screen by hitting second mode. Okay, so I just wanted to quit the screen. Now, to get that computer to give us these answers, we're going to go back into the second x -1 button. So second x -1, we're going to arrow over to math. So arrow right to math. And then we're going to arrow down until we find RREF. So arrow down. RREF is reduced row echelon form. So you don't want REF, you want RREF. When you get to that, hit enter. It'll bring the RREF to the screen. Now, we go back and put our matrix into it. So after RREF, I hit enter. Then I go back into second, x negative 1, second, x negative 1, and hit enter because I put my matrix in for matrix A that's highlighted. So when I hit enter, it brings my matrix onto the screen, and I just hit enter again. Once I get this, it puts the answers in order of the first row is the X, the second row is the Y, and the third row here is the Z, so that you get a -5, 5, -4. Okay? Alrighty. This next one here wants me to find the range of this graph. The range is the Y values. And we always start with the smallest Y value and go to the highest Y value. And on range, since them numbers are included, we use brackets. So here's the smallest point on the graph, and I need to go over here and see what that Y value is, and that looks like it's at a -2. And then let's see, this point is the highest. So at this point, I need to go over here and see that Y value, and that would be a 3. Close my brackets and be done. So a lot of people put the X values for the range, but remember the X values are the domain. All right, we're going to match the inequality with the graph. So I'm actually going to work that one by hand. So this would be number 6. They're giving me 6x minus 9y is greater than -3. So we're going to solve it, and then I'll have the calculator graph it for us. So to solve this, I need to get the -6x to both sides. So that's going to give me -9y is greater. And I'm just going to put them in order. I'm going to put my x's first and then my -3. All right, now I need to divide everybody by that -9. Now, since I'm dividing by negative, remember at this point, I got to reverse the direction of the inequality. So I get a y is now less than. All right, that gives me a negative. Divided by negative is going to be a positive. 6/9, but I'm going to reduce that to a 2/3 x. And then here's a negative divided by negative. That's going to give me a positive. And I'm going to reduce that to a 1/3. Now, what's nice, if you didn't reduce that, it don't matter. You could put 6/9 and +3/9. The graph will look exactly the same as my graph. Now, if I was actually grading it and making you solve for that, yeah, it wouldn't matter if it was reduced, okay? All righty, so we're going to graph this, and then I'm going to make the calculator do that shading. So I got 2 divided by 3x plus 1 divided by 3. Now, to make it shade, we go all the way left. And we get it over here to the left side of the Y where it's blinking. I'm going to hit enter. For less than, I'm looking for the triangle that looks like the big part's on the bottom. Greater than, the big part would be on the top. So hit enter until we get that triangle. So there's the top and there's the bottom. So I got my equation in. I've got my shading done. And I'm going to set my window because look, theirs goes from -12 to 12 on the answers. So I want mine to match. So I'm going to hit that window button and go from -12, enter, to a positive 12. And then I'm going to go to Y min and go from negative 12 enter to a positive 12. Now, when we hit graph, we will get one of them 4 pictures. Now, the calculator don't do the dotted lines, but remember, since there's not an equals under those technically would be dotted lines, okay? If that was an equal, then they would be solid like the calculator does it. But our calculator can't distinguish between the 2 lines, okay? So I would definitely go with B on that one. All right, I think I can work 7 on this paper, so let's see what we got. We got a ladder resting against a wall. So here's a wall, and then I got a ladder coming off of it. They're telling me the top of the ladder touches my wall at 18 feet. So I know this height is going to be my 18 feet. Find the length of the ladder if the length is 6 feet more than distance from the wall. So they're calling this the distance from the wall. I don't know that, so we'll call that our X. But we did know the ladder was 6 feet more than that distance, so we'll make that our X plus 6. So what we got is a right triangle, which means that the angle, the side across from the 90-degree angle is your hypotenuse, which will be C. And then that can be A and B. It don't really matter which is which. All that matters is that C is definitely that longest side, okay? So I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. A I know was X. B was 18. And that's going to equal C squared, which is X plus 6 all squared. All right, so I can't do nothing with the X squared yet, so I'm going to bring that down. 18 squared is going to give me 324. That's going to equal to X plus 6 squared. So the X plus 6 squared, I'm going to work that right here, is X plus 6 times X plus 6. You got to FOIL that. So you'll do an X squared plus 6X plus 6X and then plus 36. And then add those X's together so that we get an X squared plus 12X plus 36. We'll replace that with that now. X squared plus 12X plus 36. And you'll notice a lot of times in math, you get a lot of what I call side work, because you don't want to do that in line here, because that you'll just be rewriting all this stuff a whole lot of times, okay? All right, so I got these X squared terms, so technically I need everything on one side equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract an X squared term and move it over, but look, those cancel and those cancel. So we get 324 is going to equal the 12X plus 36. So notice what happened. The X squared terms are gone, so all we're going to do now is solve it for the X. So subtract our 36. So let's see, 324 minus 36 will give me 288. That's going to equal our 12X. And then divide both sides by 12. So that'll give me my X. So let's see, 288 divided by 12 is going to give me 24. But remember, 24 is not the answer. They will put that answer there. But y'all, that ladder ain't 24 feet long. That distance from the wall is 24 feet. We got to get the ladder. The ladder's going to be that 24 plus the 6. And let's see, 24 plus 6 will give us 30 for the ladder. So we go with A. Okay, so not a bad problem. You just got to get it set up and try to work it. I've been noticing on every one of these that I've been doing, though, these X squared terms are canceling every time, okay? All right, so let me bring this over and work my number 8 on paper. Number 8 said find the domain. And I'm going to put the domain in interval notation. So f of x equals x minus 5 over x squared plus 7x. All right, so for a domain, all I'm worried about is setting the bottom equal to 0. At this point, if you wanted to quad, you would have a is 1, b would be 7, and c would be 0. Remember, you do have the x term this time, so the x is the 7, and there's not a number at the end, so that would be your 0. So quad would kick out your answers. I'm going to solve this by factoring, because this would not be bad to factor, because both of these have an x. You would factor out an x like a GCF on this, and then x squared divided by x leaves you an x plus 7x divided by x leaves you a 7. So if you factored it, then you would take both of these factors and set equal to 0. So that one's done. So this one we would subtract 7 and get x is a -7. But y'all up here, if you quadded it, quad would spit 0 and -7 out pretty quick. All right, so that our domain is going to start at -infinity, and we cruise until we hit -7 first. Then we go from -7 to the 0, and then we union from that 0 to positive infinity. Okay, so pretty much all the ones I've been doing on this problem have had x squared plus some number times x. So the easy way to go would be just to factor it real quick or hit it with that quad, okay? Oh, number 9 is a good one too, y'all. Number 9 wants me to construct the difference quotient, which is f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. They're giving me f of x. F of x is going to equal 8x squared plus 3x. So they're giving me the f of x right here. H is always on the bottom. What I got to find for this formula is the f of x plus h part. So let's find that first. So to find f of x plus h, I take this f of x equation, and where they got them two x's, I'm going to put x plus h. So I got 8 times x plus h squared plus 3 times x plus h. All right, oh, look at that. X plus h squared is x plus h times x plus h. That would give you a x squared plus a hx plus hx plus h squared. So we would add the like terms and get an x squared plus 2hx plus h squared. So y'all save that if you want to, because on your test, you're going to have to FOIL that and get that answer. So replace that in your formula. 8 times the x squared plus 2hx plus h squared plus 3 times the x plus h. All right, so now you would distribute the 8 through these and the 3 through the second parentheses. So you get a 8x squared plus 16hx's plus 8h squared plus 3x plus 3h. So all of this is now f of x plus h. So let's put everything in the formula. F of x plus h minus the f of x and put that all over h. All right, so I'm going to put in the 8x squared plus 16hx plus 8h squared plus 3x plus 3h. F of x was 8x squared plus 3x. All right, so I will say if you're doing business calculus, you will have fun with this formula in that class, okay? All right, so all this f of x stuff, since it don't have h's, is going to cancel with something over here. So this negative 8x squared is going to cancel with that positive 8x squared. And then this negative 3x is going to cancel with this positive 3x. So everything in the second parenthesis always cancels in the first. So now that leaves me a 16hx plus a 8h squared plus 3h all over h. And if you remember, to get my final answer, I had to take one h out of everybody. So that I get a 16x plus 8h plus 3 all over 1. So that means this is my final answer. So the trick on that, y'all, like I said, is finding the f of x plus h and then save that part because you'll use that on yours, okay? All right, so let me bring this over because now I got a few to graph. Number 10 wants me to graph f of x equals the square root of x minus 5. All of our calculators got an x squared button right there. And if you notice right above it is a radical. So to hit that radical, you hit the second button. So let's go to y equals. I'm going to clear this out. So I want the radical first. So I hit second, x squared to bring up my radical. Older calculators use parentheses. So you would put in the x minus 5. On mine, I can arrow out. Older calculators, close your parentheses after that 5. Now, this window goes from negative 20 to 20 on everything. So I'm going to hit the window button and go from negative 20, enter, to a positive 20. And then negative 20 on the y to a positive 20. All right, got my equation in, got my window set, hit enter. I will get one of these 4 pictures. And y'all, looks like I'm going to go with A on that one. But I knew that happens because remember, these graphs always start in the center. And since we was attacking that x by subtracting 5, it actually moved it 5 units to the right. All right, this one I think I can do straight off this picture because they got both the dots here. So it wants me to find any relative maxes and relative minimums. So this is the relative max because it's a peak. So let's see, it is a maximum value of 1, which is the y value, and it happens at x equals 0. This point is a minimum because it's a valley. So it is a minimum of, that y value is negative 3, and that happens at x equals a positive 2. So let's see, that said none, we know that ain't it. So let's see, negative 3 at x equals 2 for a max. Nope, that was our minimum. Let's see, this one said maximum of 1 at x equals 0, minimum of negative 3 at 2. So we would definitely go with C. All right, this wants to know how can the graph of f of x equals negative 8 minus x squared plus 10 be obtained from that graph. So first, that negative is going to reflect across the x. Remember, the only way to reflect across the y-axis is if I made the exponents negative. All right, next move is that negative 8. Since I'm attacking the x and subtracting 8, it's actually going to move me to the right. 8 units. So it's always opposite on that. And now that plus 10 goes up or down, and since that's positive, it will move up 10 units. So let's see, I had to move right 8, which is the first thing they're saying. So top 3 got moving at 8 right to the 8. This one says reflect across the Y. This one says reflect across the Y. They're both wrong because we reflected across the X. So we went 8 units right, across the X, and that better be 10 up, which we had. So we're good. We're going to go with B on that, okay? So just go through, see what the moves are doing, and then only one of them sentences will be what you need. All right, 13. Oop, that's going to be written. So 13 wanted me to find the zeros. They're giving us f of x equals 2x squared plus 11x plus 3. So find the zeros. This one will not factor. So you could use the quad. A would be 2, B would be 11, C would be 3. I'm going to use the quad, but I'm going to do it by hand. So quad is negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. All right, so put your negative. B was 11, put that in, plus or minus 11 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, and c, which is 3. All that's over 2 times a, which is 2. All right, y'all, so that gives me my negative 11 plus or minus. Under the radical, 11 times 11 is 121. There's only one negative, so that's going to stay negative. And let's see what we get. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. All that's over 2 times 2, which is 4. All right, so bring down to negative 11. All right, let's see what we get under here. 121. Oh, hey, turn it on. How about that? Clear that. 121 minus 24 gives me 97. All that's over 4. So now the only way to go further would be if this 97 contained a factor that was a perfect square. But look at this. You got 4 answers here. And it looks like you're either going to have a 97 under there or a 115. And mine has a 97, so I need the one that says negative 11 plus or minus square root of 97 over 4. So we want negative 11 plus or minus square root of 97 over 4, which would have been C. Okay, so once the subtracting got done on that problem, I didn't see any that simplified further than what you got, okay? All right, y'all, 14, find the vertex. Vertex formula is negative b divided by 2a, and then f of negative b divided by 2a. So you find the x value, then you put that x value back in here to get the y value. So I'm going to get the x first, negative b divided by 2a. B is 16, so I got negative 16 divided by 2 times a, which is 4, which gives me a negative 16 divided by 8, which gives me a negative 2. So no matter what, I know my x value is negative 2. Well, hell, that's got an 18. That's got a negative 2. That's got a negative 18. That's got a positive 2. So, yo, I'm pretty sure my y value is about to get a negative 18. So to find the y value, we do f of negative 2 because that's the x value we found. All right, so that gives me 4 times negative 2 squared plus 16 times negative 2 minus 2. All right, so -2 times -2 is 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 2 is a -32 minus 2. And if you add them up, 16 minus 32 is a -16. -16 minus 2 is a -18. But y'all, we knew that because the only answer that had the right X was the B on that, okay? So I just went on, finished it out. That way I could verify everything. All right, then you're going to hit with 15. You're going to find the zeros, but this one's already factored. And we want to know the multiplicity of each. So 2 does not have a variable with it. It's gone. But these other two do have variables. So to find the zeros, you take both of them factors and set them equal to 0. So to solve that, I would subtract 7. And I get X is a -7. So remember, the factors and the solutions or the zeros always have opposite signs. So this one I would add 7 and get X is a +7. Now I need the multiplicities of each of these. So since this -7 came from this factor, its multiplicity is that exponent 2. And then that +7 came from this factor, its multiplicity would be that exponent, which would be 3. So, because what that multiplicity means that if I was actually writing these out, that's how many times I would have to write this, twice, and then I'd have to write that in 3 times. So let's see. I didn't even have a 4. So let's see, -7 3 times. Nope, -7 had to be twice. Didn't have a 4 again. Here we go, -7 twice, +7 3 times. We would go with D. All right, let's see. 16 is a graph, so I'm going to graph that right on the calculator like it looks. So that's a -x, so -x. And then parentheses, x plus 2, close parentheses, and square that one. Arrow over and do parentheses, x minus 1, close parentheses, and square that. So did y'all see how I use this to square it one time? And then I use that x squared key. I wanted y'all to see that they both do the same thing, okay? All right, now look, this goes from -6 to 6 and -240 to 240. So for the x's, I'm going to hit my window, go from -6, enter, +6. Then I'm going to enter until I get my y's. I'm going to do -240, enter, +240. Now when I hit graph, I will get one of those 4 pictures. So see, it looks like it comes down and then goes to the right. Ooh, y'all, them are, let's see. What is the difference on these? Well, I don't really like this question. So hell on that, and if you picked A or B, I'd have to give that to you. Because I don't see no differences on those graphs. Yeah, so test generator does bad things sometimes. So what y'all would do would be zooming in and make it look more like y'all's and zoom that in, okay? All you gotta do is hit zoom and then go to zoom in and hit enter. And it'll sort of give you what's happening right there. So if you zoom this one in, it'll have a little magnifying glass. But I'll tell you, if you missed that question because of that, I would probably override that one for you, okay? The other version had more distinct characteristics than the one y'all just had, okay? All right, y'all, let's see what we got next. Find the vertical asymptotes. So to find vertical asymptotes, you take the bottom and set it equal to 0, just like you did on the domain. All right, so to solve this one, I add 7. I get x equals 7. This one I would subtract 5. X equals -5. Look for that answer. Now, we don't let them fool you with these y's. We need x's. So I need what? X is 7 and -5. Go with B. We do not worry about the top. That's where they got them 10s from, okay? All right, 18, find the value. We want G of F of 4. So remember, that's like G of F of 4. So I got to find F of 4 first. F of 4 will equal 6 times 4 minus 8, which is 24 minus 8, which gives us 16. Now that we know F of 4 is 16, we got to find G of that 16. Oh, that's going to be big right there, y'all. Look at that. I got negative 9 times 16 squared plus 8 times 16 minus 9. So I was thinking some of these numbers looked a little big over here, if you notice. 734, 2185, but with that 16 being squared, I'm not so sure, right? So let me clear that. Because if you notice, 16 squared is 256. So you would have negative 9 times 256 plus 8 times 16 minus 9. Ooh, so 256 times negative 9, that's going to give you negative 2304 plus 8 times 16 is 128 minus 9. So y'all, let's see what that gives me. Negative 2304 plus 128 minus 9 gives us negative 2185, which is sitting over here at B. Oh, okay, so I guess the big one was it, huh? All right, now number 19 is doing the same thing, but they're not giving me that number on this one. They just got an X there. So this means find me G of F of X. So we know F of X, they gave that to us. That's going to be negative 5X plus 4. But since you can't do nothing with that, that whole thing is going to go into the G, so that we're finding G of a negative 5X plus 4. So take that G equation, 4. In for x is going to be negative 5x plus 4. So you're putting the whole function in for the x, and then at the end is a plus 2. So the first thing I would do is distribute. So I get negative 20x plus 4 times 4 is 16 plus 2. And then y'all add like terms. So we get negative 20x plus, what's that, 18, which I see over here at my C.
Where did you get that positive 4 from?
This 4?
Yeah, yeah, that one.
So remember, since I couldn't do nothing with the f of x right here, I'm putting the whole thing into my g. Well, my g started out with a 4. So I wrote that 4, and then in place of that x, you put it that negative 5x plus 4 in there, and then at the end is your plus 2. So it still really looks like the g, right? 4 times the x plus 2. Okay? That sort of help you on that, Jessica?
Yes, sir.
All righty. So y'all, let me tell you this. This problem will definitely be 1-to-1. So you're going to have to find a formula for the inverse no matter what. So we got f of x equals 6x minus 4. First thing we do is replace the f of x with a y. Once I replaced f of x with a y, I switch those around. So switch so that you got x equals 6y minus 4. So now you got to solve it for the y. So you would add 4 first. So y'all, that would give me x plus 4 equals 6y. And then divide both sides by 6. So that'll cancel. I'm going to get a y. Can't do nothing on this side, so that's going to be x plus 4 over 6. And then the last step was to replace the y with the f inverse of x notation. And then once again, we couldn't do nothing with that, so that's going to stay at x plus 4 over 6. So let's see, right here I got it, x plus 4 over 6. So not a bad one. So I will guarantee that every single one of those will be one-to-one. But if you wanted to, you could graph it. So let me clear that out and put 6x minus 4. And then I'm going to go to zoom and put my window back on 10 by 10 by hitting standard, so that when I graph it, it looks like a regular window. Now on this one, to be one-on-one, a horizontal line cannot touch it more than once, which it does, and it only touches it once everywhere. That's how you would tell if it's one-to-one, okay? So you're going to be finding that inverse. Remember, replace the y for the f of x, switch them, solve for the new y, and be done. All right, let's see what was next. All right, 21. Is that what I'm on, 21 now? Said graph the function. So I'm going to go to my y equals. Clear that out. So I got my 3. Use the exponent arrow up key. And then put in x minus 3. Older calculators, when you do that, it's going to give you parentheses. Put in your x minus 3. Close those parentheses. New calculators, you got to arrow down from the exponent and then put minus 2. So the old calculators will look like that. In the new ones, you just arrow down and put it in. Now the window is from -6 to 6 for the x's and y's. So I'm going to go to window, -6, enter, 6. And then go down and do -6, enter, 6. So that now when we graph, we should get one of these 4 pictures. Now, C and D are close, but notice C curves up before the y-axis and D curves up after the y-axis, which is how ours does. So we would definitely pick D and move on. All right, let's see, what's 22? Convert to exponential. So remember, you take the base first. Base is the 5. So 5 would be the first thing you write. This t is your exponent. So that's going to go up here by the 5. And then that's going to equal that result. And the result is 125. So let's see. That's got a 125. No. 5t to the 5th. No. Here we got 5t, 125, which is what we needed. So go with C. All right, what's 23? Express in terms of sums and differences. So if it's on top, it's going to be added. If it's on bottom, it's going to be subtracted. And you got to distribute that log to everybody so that we get a log x to the 6 plus a log z to the, what's that, a 7? Oh no, there wasn't nothing by my z, was there? And then since this y to the 7's on bottom, it's going to be minus log y to the 7th. Now remember, the last thing I do is take these exponents and bring them down to the front. So this one will give you a 6 log x plus the log z minus 7 log y. Now, be careful, because some of these, they put a little bit of a multiplication there. We need the one that has 6 log x plus log z minus 7 log y. So we got to go with D on that, okay? All right, so 24 sort of came out of that 9-7 section. But on this one, we're going to give you the formula, and you just got to put this 3 in for that t and see what we get. So we'll have 900,000 e to the 0.05 times t, but it says right here 3 years, so we're going to put a 3 in for that t. All right, so let me clear this screen. So here we go, 900,000. E is second ln. That'll bring you to e with the exponent, and then you do 0.05 times 3. Older calculators, when you put the e, it's going to give you that with a parenthesis. You'll put 0.05 times 3 and then close your parentheses. All right, so we're rounding to the nearest person, I guess, because we're looking at populations. So when I hit enter, I get 1045, so that's 1,045,000. So let's see, the only one close is this one, and 650. But remember that 0.8 rounded that 0 up to a 1, so I would go with C on that one and be done. All right, y'all, there was one question left. Solve the exponential equation. 2 ways you can do this, so I'm going to do this both ways. The first way is to rewrite 64 using a 2. You can do that. So watch this. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. I did that 6 times, so I could rewrite this as 2 to the 12 minus 2x equals 2 to the 6. Okay, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. I did that 6 times, because now if the bases match, 12 minus 2x has to equal 6. And then I would just solve that for the x by subtracting 12. Negative 2x would equal negative 6, and then divide by that negative 2, so that x would equal positive 3, which would be my b. Now, say you didn't know you could rewrite that number. So if you cannot rewrite 64 using 2's like I did, then the only thing you could do, you'd have to solve this by taking ln's. So ln of 2 to the 12 minus 2x would equal to ln of 64. Since I did an ln to this side, I do an ln to that side. Now what that would do would bring that exponent down. Now to solve that for the x, since this is all being multiplied by that ln2, we're going to divide both sides by ln of 2, so that 12 minus 2x, let's see what this side equals. Now remember, when you do this on the calculator, you got to close those parentheses. So ln, see how it opened the parentheses? 64, close parentheses, divided by ln, it opens parentheses 2, close those. So y'all look at that. That's going to give me a 6. Now what's funny, no matter which way you solved it, look, I got 12 minus 2x equals 6 there. I got 12 minus 2x equals 6 here. No matter what you do, you're going to get the same answer, right? Minus 12. Negative 2x would equal negative 6. And then divide by that negative 2. And get x is a positive 3. So on this problem, either way will give me a 3, which is sitting right there at my B. So y'all, that gives you 2 versions of this. I sent a version out last night that matches the study guide I sent y'all. And then we got this version I'm going to send out later today that we went over today. And just, if you do both these versions, play with them, and do the version online, which will give you more looks at these questions, you'll see that there's only certain things I can do to these questions, okay? So practice those and you'll have no problem. And then remember, if you do good on that final and it's higher than your lowest test, I'm going to replace that lowest test with that final exam grade. All right, so we're going to quit recording.